Plan stage is the first stage in the software development lifecycle. And it primarily consists of developing a high-level business case, developing high-level requirements for the software, making a make versus buy decision. Do you buy off-the-shelf software or make it from scratch, code it yourself? And large projects may have a mix of the two. Then you need to decide, do you need to bring in some external help on the project? And finally, you develop a high-level timeline for the project. So let's now dive into the details of the plan stage. The plan stage consists of 6 sub-processes. And as you see, each sub-process here is marked with a name, the primary project role that is responsible for performing the activities within the sub-process, and then finally the tool which is primarily used during that sub-process. And the first step is you propose the project. You go to your management and say, hey, I think we have a viable project here. Can I spend some time and energy planning it out at a high level? And that output of that is your initial project charter. Then you initiate the project, and you're going to pull a couple people in to help you with the planning that your management has authorized to help you. And you come out of that with a kind of planning team and budget, right? And then you're going to go and do your review of the current state. So you're going to identify what are the issues within the current state that you're trying to address in this project, quantify them a little bit, but still fairly high level. So you come out with the current state of that, and then you're going to define the build. So to address the issues or the needs, what components do we need to build within the software? You get a good initial list of that, and now you can actually plan the project, right? How many people is it going to take? How long is it going to take? And the main thing coming out of that is a high-level project plan and the high-level timeline. And then finally, you take all this back to management and you say, hey, we've done some initial due diligence, and we think it's either a go or a no-go. And if it's a go, here's how much you need to invest for us to do more detailed analysis and really finalize all the planning and design work, detailed requirements work in the analyze stage. And coming out of that, they say yes, they give you a team and a budget so you can go into the analyze stage. Okay, so let's dive into the first sub-process, which is proposing the project. So this means you're taking this to your management and you're saying, hey, I think this is worthy of some further investigation. So this all starts with you've identified an issue or an opportunity, maybe a customer suggestion for an enhancement or a new product line, etc. And you're going to do just some initial research of the issue and opportunity. We're talking all back of the envelope types of things here. And what I like to do is document that in the project charter. So there's a project description in the project charter. You're basically filling that out. What is this project all about? What's it trying to achieve? And then you're going to define the business case. Again, this is very high level. You'll finalize the business case in the next stage, the analyze stage. The very high level, do we think this is worth $1 million? Do we think this is worth $10 million? How much is it going to cost? Is it going to be 20 grand? Is it going to be 100 grand? $1 million to build that very high level things? And you're summarizing that also in the business case summary portion of the charter. Next, you're going to say, hey, I need some people to help me with this plan stage itself, which is going to be very minimal amount of time typically, and that's a massive project. And so you're going to say, oh, these are the people I need, and you're going to reach out to them and their managers and say, is it okay if like the architect can spend 4 or 8 hours over the next couple of weeks helping me plan out this potential project, and get okay on that. And you're going to document who that team is in your charter. And then you're going to say, okay, you're going to plan the stage. So you've probably reached out to a project manager as part of the recruiting the team. And you're going to say, hey, all right, let's put a little plan together. What research do we need to do to estimate the costs, et cetera, in this stage? Right, and how long is it going to take? Can we get this done in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months? It usually doesn't go much longer than that. You want to try to time box this whole stage, a plan stage, in about 4 weeks if you can. And you come out with a little, list of activities, very, very small project plan. And then you go into, all right, so how much time and are we going to have any in-out-of-pocket expenses to get the plan, go through the plan stage? And because you want to take that to the management and get their okay to this team that you recruited, got the tentative okay on, can work on it. And then you're going to go in front of management and you're going to say, hey, can we go ahead and spend this? Can I grab these people for a certain amount of time and can we work on this project, planning this project? And you can document all this in the project charter and then, summarize it in a nice little presentation to your management and hopefully say, yes, we think this is an opportunity that's worth for you guys to spend, part-time over the next couple of weeks planning this out. All right, so let's now talk about the initiate the project sub-process. And if you are doing this all internally, this is very quick. This is the first activity here, approve the project, what the sponsor is going to do. And then the last activity, which is kick off the plan stage, which is just getting your team members together and talking about what you need to accomplish in the plan stage, getting them up to speed, kicking off the project. These other 4 activities in the center here are all if you're going to bring in some external help, which isn't uncommon. So if you are bringing in external help, you need to identify a short list of potential consultants, right? Who have you worked with in the past, general internet search, etc., based on people who have specialties you're looking for. You're going to issue a consultant RFP to them saying, here, this is what we would like you to bid on. You're going to go through that bidding process and response, which can take quite a while, right? It can minimum of a month, usually longer. And you're going to award the contract to one of the consultants. You're going to sign those contracts, which again, after the award, getting legal to go through and review all the contracts, all the redlining going back and forth. That can take another month or so. And then finally, you're going to go into the kickoff stage with the consultant present because you've signed contracts. And you're going to kick off the work on the planning stage. Next sub-process is to review the current state. So you've gotten your approval to go into the plan, you've got your team together and got them kicked off. And now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to assemble any existing documentation we have or metrics related to this issue opportunity, right? Pull that together. We're going to set up maybe a team site for documentation, like a SharePoint site, and start storing all these documents there. We're going to get them pulled together. We're going to start reviewing them. Next thing you want to do is interview key stakeholders involved in this issue or opportunity, understand the details, right? That's a business analyst typically taking notes. And what comes out of that is high-level requirements. So based on the issue opportunity, what do we need the software to do at a very high level? You're going to get much more detail on this in later stages, but just high-level things, we need to be able to create a financial balance sheet, high-level things like that. Next, if you've got a detailed process or process work, remember we're always working on people, process, and technology. So the process piece is a great idea, and there's a famous Harvard Business Review article called Staple Yourself to Order. So you staple yourself to the process, walk through the process with the people who carry out that process, understand it clearly, where are there opportunities we can improve the process, where are the major issues. Again, that's a business analyst, primarily usually documenting that in a process flow tool like a Visio, or you can do it in Miro, all sorts of tools. And so coming out of that is really the scope. So we talk about the process, at least the process portion of the scope. Where are the problems? What parts of the process do we need to address? And then the people portion is you draft an impact assessment. So, how is the changes we want to make to this process and to the system, how is that going to impact certain organizations? So at a very high level, and typically that can be done right in an Excel list or other software. And you're just saying, okay, we make these changes, here's what the impact is going to be. You can even start talking about, and we think it's going to be a large impact, a minor impact. Do we need training versus just simple communications, etc. And then the people, process, technology. Again, the technology portion of is, what are the current systems that we're dealing with. So you get this inventory together, right? It's a list in Excel. You may already have an existing systems inventory. In case you can skip most of this, you just need to mark which systems are going to be impacted and we need to address. And by then you have your current state. In fact, these last three or these four activities really can go on in parallel. They don't need to be done sequentially. So at the end of this, you understand the current state relevant to your issue or opportunity. Okay, so now coming out of that current state analysis, you have a list of high-level requirements for the software. What does the software basically need to be able to do? And so what you're going to do now, you're going to say, hey, is there any existing software out in the market that already does this? Can save us some time. We can just buy it. We don't have to build it ourselves. So you're going out there and you get on the internet, looking through, are there any software in your industries or other industries that have these capabilities that you can potentially use, understand their basic functionality, and you're coming out with a kind of a short list of there's some applicable software that we could use. And then you're making the decision here at this point. It says, okay, given high level understanding of this software, does it make sense for us to build it from scratch, or should we go ahead and just buy it? And that's a discussion you're going to have with your whole little team, planning team, IT management, primarily architect, IT architects, and come to a general decision. Yes, for these requirements we can buy right off the shelf. These requirements we need to build custom, and get that kind of list together, and you come out with your make versus buy decision. So if you decided there is at least some cases where you're going to make the software yourself, right? You're going to build it yourself. Then what you need to do is identify the build objects. And even if you purchase something off the shelf, there's still going to be some build components. You've got things you need to configure. Usually there's some interfaces with existing systems, or you've got to build reports from scratch. So at this point, you're saying, okay, these are the individual components we need to build. And they're things like I just mentioned. There's what database tables do we need to build? What interfaces do we need to build? What reports do we need to build? And at this point, you may not know the exact reports, but you can at least get an estimate. We're probably going to have to build 5 reports in this relevant subject, or we're going to have to build 10 reports total, or 20 reports, or 200 reports, whatever it is. And then you've got that list of components you need to build. Now you can do some serious estimating, right? So a good project manager can take that list of components that need to be built, meet with IT management and the IT architects, and say, okay, how long do you think it's going to take to build this? How many hours of developer labor, etc. And you get an initial labor estimate for the project. Okay, so now that we know what components we need to build and we have some basic labor estimates for them, we're going to plan the project. And this is primarily the project manager's realm, right? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, you're going to plan releases. Usually you're going to release software in multiple releases. Sometimes it's one release, but if you're doing multiple releases, then you're going to say, project manager is going to get with the product owner and say, okay, which of this functionality, these requirements, is the minimum viable product for the first release? And that builds out the first release, and then based on those requirements, what are the components they need to build in that release? So you're bundling that release, and then you're saying, okay, what's the second release going to look like? All right, so you have the releases, and now the next thing you're going to do is say, okay, for that release, that first release, how long is it going to take to get through the analysis and design stages, right? And you're going to get an estimate of that. And so you end up with your build inventory when you're going to actually start build, because you start build at the end of the design. And then you're going to create a high-level timeline, right? And that goes through the whole project, all the various releases, all the various stages, right? Where you're going to be doing analysis for which release. And then you can start building a detailed project plan. You can even get it, a labor-loaded project plan if you want to get that fancy. and the project manager is handling that, and they come up with the tasks and the staffing required to meet the timeline, right? And then you create an overall project cost estimate, right? How many hours of internal labor are we going to need for this budget year, and how much we need for next budget year if it's a long project? How many dollars in external consultants do we need? How many dollars for the software, if we're purchasing, etc. Get that estimate pulled together. And then you're also, as you go here in parallel, as you define your releases, you can get on the people side, you can create an impact assessment for each release. What are all the impacts of which various groups? And all this feeds into, so create the project cost estimate, etc., and high-level timeline feeds into the milestones in the project charter. The impact assessment gives you your stakeholders and your impacts. But the other thing you're doing here is project manager usually is doing a lot of iteration at this point. So they start to put together the releases, they start to put together a high-level timeline. They learn that they can't get as many resources as they want, so that's going to extend the timeline, and now they're iterating back through that, and create this plan. So now the last sub-process within the plan stage is we're going to approve the analyze stage if it's a viable project, right? And the main deliverable here is a project charter and then a summary of the charter in an executive presentation. So you've got all the information you should need at this point to draft a project charter, right? You're going to review that project charter within the plan team, make sure everybody's on the same page. They've got everything in black and white in front of them, all the scope and key dates and milestones, and they all sign off on it. And then you're going to assemble a steering committee. So based on all the organizations that are impacted, you want the managers of those orgs that are going to be heavily impacted, you want them to form kind of your steering committee, right? And then you're going to take that charter, and usually you send out a copy of the charter as well as you hold a review meeting, and you get with the steering committee and the sponsor and you say, hey, this is what we found. We either recommend we don't pursue this, which is a pretty short meeting, or yes, we think there's opportunity here. We think we'll get a nice return on investment for the company, and we should go forward. And by the way, this is how much the next stage is going to cost, how long it's going to take. The analyze stage is going to take, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. This is the number of people we're going to need. This is how much consultants are going to cost, et cetera, et cetera. And so you're asking that steering committee and sponsor at this point simply to approve the spend and the effort to do the next stage, the analyze stage. We're going to go into very detailed software requirements. And so that is the plan stage. Okay, let's go back and review the various project roles within the plan stage. So the first one is the product owner, and that's you, right? And your main role during the plan stage is you identify the need in the first place for the project and the software. You're the one primarily who's going to assemble the initial team. One of your biggest roles is prioritizing the software functionality, so what needs to be in the first release, etc. And then you are the one who owns the project, so you're the one primarily presenting to management. You're the face of the project. Next, we have the project sponsor. Now, they're the one typically paying for the project. They're the ones who are going to approve the effort to plan it, to go into a plan stage. They are going to approve the project charter, and then they are the ones who are going to approve spending additional effort if you recommend moving into analyze stage. Next, we have the steering committee members. Now they are identified towards the end of the plan stage, right? But they are selected because they manage the groups that are going to be most impacted by this project. And so you need their cooperation to have a successful project. They are going to approve the project charter, and they are going to approve moving into the analyze stage because they are probably going to have to pony up some resources to assist with the analyze stage. Okay, so you have the project manager role. Now, in very small projects, you may be filling both the role as product owner and project manager. But if you're lucky enough, or it's a larger project, to have a project manager, their role is to plan the project, right? So they are going to take the kind of the lead on getting the project charter pulled together, a high-level timeline for the project, and a work plan both for the plan stage itself and more detailed plan for the analyze stage, and then higher level plans for the later stages. Next, we have the IT representative, and in most cases, that's going to be an IT architect. In some cases, it may be a manager within IT or even an IT project manager, but you're always going to need some architecture input. And their roles, where they're going to help the most, is they're really going to help make the make versus buy decision, where their IT department should build this from scratch or not, or buy something off the shelf. They're going to be obviously very involved in estimating the IT labor required to actually develop the software, and they're also very key in defining what components have to be built, what are the build objects. So they'll understand the systems, they'll understand where we potentially have to build interfaces, they'll understand if there's other IT work going on that may create a dependency or a conflict with the schedule. So they're going to be key with everything IT. All right, now we have the business analyst. So on very small projects, again, you as product owner may be filling the role of business analyst, especially during the plan stage. And then you may bring in an analyst or analyst later stages. But either way, whether it's yourself or someone else, the main roles here are there's a primary role for analyzing the current state. And as an output of that current state, they're documenting the process, the business case, and the high-level requirements for the software. So that is the overview of the plan stage. I hope you liked this video. I'll be making future videos with more details about some of the deliverables in the plan stage, particularly the project charter. If you liked this video, please either subscribe or like, because that gives me the motivation to make more videos. All right, take care.